Most worshipful Grand Master, I have the pleasure of presenting brothers David Larson, Dick Mitchell, and Robert Sloan, who have been appointed chaplains for the respective lodges for the ensuing Masonic year.
My brothers, as chaplains, it is your duty to perform those solemn services which remind us of our Creator, whose Spirit is refining our souls, strengthening our virtues, and purifying our minds, that we might fulfill in our lives in service to Him, as we serve others in Freemasonry and all people throughout the world. Yours is the most important office, since the fraternity shapes and creates the bond of brotherhood, those lasting friendships which are more family-like than casual. It is your responsibility to console those family members upon the passing of a departed brother, and to lead the lodge as we pay our respects in honoring him with a Masonic memorial service. You are also to bear the responsibility of keeping all of the brethren focused on the sacred law, which is our Masonic trestle board, steering and counseling them when their actions, prejudices, and desires infringe upon others, reminding them of their higher duty to a peaceful and harmonious service to God and man. Having already received your aprons, you will now be invested with the jewel of your office.
Most worshipful Grand Master, I have the pleasure of presenting Mike Epson, who has been elected secretary for his respective lodge for the ensuing Masonic year.
My brother, as secretary, it is your duty to observe the will and pleasure of the worshipful master in reporting the proceedings of this lodge. Transmit a copy thereof to the Grand Lodge when requested. To receive all monies paid into the lodge and pay them out, or pay them over to the treasurer, taking his receipt thereof. Your good inclination to Freemasonry and this lodge will induce you to discharge the duties of your office with fidelity, and by so doing, you will merit the esteem of your brethren. Having already received your apron, you will now be invested with your collar.
Most worshipful Grand Masters, I have the pleasure of presenting Steve LaSure and Roger Bishop as Secretary Treasurers of their respective lodge for the ensuing Masonic year.
My brothers, it is the Secretary Treasurer's duty to observe the will and pleasure of the worshipful master in reporting the proceedings of the lodge. Transmit a copy thereof to the Grand Lodge when requested. And to receive all monies paid into the lodge, keep a just and true account thereof. Pay them out by the order of the worshipful master and the consent of the lodge. At every meeting, you are to report on the income and disbursements of your lodge, and a copy of your report shall be attached to the minutes of each meeting. Your good inclination to Freemasonry and to this lodge will induce you to discharge the duties of your office with fidelity, and by so doing, you will merit the esteem of your brethren. I trust your regard for the fraternity will prompt you to faithfully discharge the duties of your office.
Grand Master, I have the pleasure of presenting Willard Young, who has been elected treasurer of his respective lodge for the ensuing Masonic year.
My brother, it is the treasurer's duty to receive all monies paid into the lodge from the hands of the secretary. Keep a just and true account thereof, and pay them out by the order of the worshipful master and the consent of the lodge. At every meeting, you are to report on the income and disbursements of the lodge, and a copy of your report shall be submitted to the secretary to be included in the lodge's minutes. I trust your regard for the fraternity will prompt you to faithfully discharge the duties of your office. Having already received your apron, you will now be invested with the jewel of your office.
Most worshipful Grand Master, I have the pleasure of presenting brothers Barrett Olson Thomas Johnson and Joseph Nelson, who have been elected junior wardens for their respective lodges for the ensuing Masonic year.
My brothers, as junior warden, your jewel is the plumb, which admonishes us to walk upright in our several stations before God and man, and to hold the scale of justice in equal balance, to observe the just medium between intemperance and excess, and to make our passions and prejudices coincide with the line of our duty. To you is committed the superintendent of the craft during the hours of refreshment. You shall act as liaison between your lodge and any related youth groups, and shall make a periodic report to the junior grand warden and your worshipful master. Your regular and punctual attendance is particularly requested, and I have no doubt but what you will faithfully perform the duties which pertain to your station. Look well to the south. Having already received your apron, you will now be invested with the jewel of your office.
Official Grand Master has the pleasure to present John Shimoda, Peter Thompson, and Scott Thompson, who have been elected senior wardens for their respective lodges for the ensuing Masonic year.
My brothers, as senior warden, your jewel is the level, which demonstrates that we are to seek a common ground. We use a level to illustrate the compromises necessary to work together and to agree, and that through distinction among men are necessary. No high station should make us forget that we are all brethren. Your regular attendance at our stated communications is essential. In the absence of the master, you will govern this lodge. In his presence, you will assist him in the government of it. I firmly rely upon your knowledge of Masonry and the attachment to the lodge for the faithful discharge of the duties of this important trust. Look well to the west. Having already received your aprons, you will now be invested with the jewel of your office.
Official Masters, please present. Come to the east. Official Grand Master, I have the pleasure of presenting Brothers Thomas Casino, Paul Lenz, and Mark King, who have been elected worshipful masters of their lives for the respective years. I find them to be of good morals, great skill, and true and trusty. And as they are lovers of fraternity, wherever it may be dispensed throughout the world, I am sure that they will discharge their duties very well.
My brothers, previous to your investiture, it is necessary that you should signify your assent to those ancient regulations which point out the duty of a master of the lodge. One of you will kneel at the altar, placing his hands on the Holy Bible square and compass. The others will place a hand on his shoulders, on one of his shoulders. Don't fight over it. Do you agree to be a good man and true, and to strictly obey the moral law, to cheerfully conform to the laws of the nation, to submit to the constituted authorities, promoting the general good of society, and propagating the knowledge of our mystic art according to its statutes? Do you agree to be courteous to your brethren and faithful to your lodge, to respect genuine brethren, and to reject impostors and all dissenters from the original plan of Freemasonry, Further, do you admit that no person can be regularly made a Mason in or admitted a member of a regular lodge without previous notice of due inquiry into his character? And do you also agree that no visitor shall be received into your lodge without producing the proper credentials and satisfying you as to his privilege to do so? Do you agree to submit to the actions of the resolutions of your brethren in lodge convened, in every case consistent with the Constitution and bylaws of the fraternity, and to pay homage to the Grand Master, and to strictly conform to every edict of the Grand Master? Do you agree that the minutes of each meeting are to be approved by the lodge, and do you agree to attest to such approval by affixing your signature with the date of the approval in the minutes immediately below the secretary's signature? Do you promise a regular attendance on the committees and communications of the Grand Lodge, and that the landmarks are to be observed, and that no new lodge can be formed without permission of the Grand Lodge, and that no recognition ought to be given to an irregular lodge or Mason? My brothers, in consequence of your cheerful conformity to the charges and regulations of the craft, you are hereby duly installed worshipful masters of this lodge, in full confidence of your care, skill, and capacity to govern the same. You will arise and be invested. Having already received your apron, you will now be invested with the jewel of your office. Installing Marshal, you will conduct our worshipful masters to the east and return to help us with the implements.